Hi, everybody. It's me again, your host, Anthony Burrows, for Life and Finances. Now, for these past many weeks, I've been talking about living within our means by spending less than you make, paying yourself first, consistently putting away 10% of your income into a rainy day savings account, doing everything possible to become the owners of land and then take needed steps to start a business because these are the proven ways for building wealth and the established path for passing it on to your children's children. Now, for many of you before the pandemic, it was a daunting challenge to get started due to our high cost of living. Wasn't this an eventful week? You got a glimpse into our system of governance, where the government commits its usual blunders, after which the opposing forces shout from the rooftops the obvious while providing no recommending solutions. Well, in this instance, the Game of Thrones continues. Now, two of my fellow colleagues this week asked that I sponsor them some breakfast. And, well, you got to find a breakfast place first, was my question to them, so to speak. Man, the underground economy, they said, is alive and well. So I wondered, yeah. According to them, you can still get your breakfast, get your lunch, get your numbers, and still get your liquor. And according to them, you just got to be from the street to know these things. I found it most interesting. Now let's continue. COVID-19, with our high cost of living, is taking its toll. Every time you turn around here, it's back to the food store for some groceries. Even though the fuel cost is down, light bills are still climbing higher than ever. On top of that, the daily towing of long lines has resulted in many persons being stressed to the max. Let someone was to give an unexpected sneeze, and that person will get some very suspicious glares. So the issue under exploration for today is our high cost of living. Does it really need to be this high? I was talking with somebody just the other day in Freeport, and apparently they went into one of the local supermarkets, and a gallon of juice was priced at $12 and some cents. See, the cost of living is directly impacting our quality of life, and then also determines if we are able to enjoy or not to enjoy our lives. Our high cost of living has caused many struggles, making it really difficult to make ends meet. And this takes me back years as a health inspector. I went out to a home dealing with a complaint. And I wonder now if this was a situation where cost of living played this particular impact. Here was the scenario when I went to the house. I knocked on the door. A young girl, no more than 16 or 17 years old, came to the door, and it was obvious she was at least 6 or 7 months pregnant. And so I introduced myself, said where I was from, and before I could say anything else, another lady came to the door who looked to be like in her late 30s. And so she turned to her and said, "Mommy, this is a gentleman from the health department." And so I spoke with the lady and said, "Okay, I'm here regarding a complaint. And the complaint concerns these 2 derelict vehicles that's in the yard." She said, "Oh, they're ours." I said, "Well, who do they belong to?" She said, "My son's car." I said, "Your son?" Said, "Oh, yeah, but you can't reach him right now. He's in Fox Hill Prison." And then out comes another lady who looks to be in her early 50s. And so I got some more information to him, who owns the home and all of that. And that lady was the grandmother who then said, well, her father left the home to them. So in this home, you had 3 generations with about 13 persons in a 3-bedroom house. And fortunately for them, they had land ownership. But the situation like that, you'd look at and you'd say, boy, these people probably made some poor choices, contributing to their financial struggle. But the financial struggle in our country due to the cost of living is very real. Now, cost of living tend to come down to just your daily living. And I'll list some items that whenever you're thinking of cost of living, these are your necessities. Now, groceries, we got to have those. House, slash rentals. You need a place to sleep to keep the rain and the draft off you. Utilities, that's the water, your light, your internet, and so forth. Transportation, whether you own a car or catching the bus. Clothing, we can't go naked. Medical care, oh man, that's a biggie. Fortunately, in the Bahamas, we have free medical care where you can go to the clinics, but of course, that's a long, drawn-out process. But let me stick a pin and mention this: NHI, National Health Insurance. If you don't have it, go to the facility on East Street, right next door to the Teachers Credit Union. I think it's in that green building. Go in there and sign up for it. Take your passport, your national insurance, and whatever else government-issued documents. And then part of determining our cost of living, some people will include cost of food at restaurants and things of that cost, and then of course at the end, laundromats, because normally the lower middle and the lower class individuals have to take their clothes to the laundromat for cleaning. Now, there are two ways to look at gauging the cost of living. You have the consumer price index. Now we know consumer, that's the person who takes in. The price is what you pay, and the index is a comparison to something. And in the case of consumer price index, the comparison is to previous years. Now the cost of living index, which is the one I'm going to look at mostly, is when you take the cost of products all over the country and then you compare them to another city or another country. Now in this instance, the comparison is New York City, because New York City is known to be a very pricey city. And so New York City will be ranked as 100 because they will be the benchmark. Now let's look at some expensive places to live. You have the Cayman Island as #1 expensive place to live in the world. And New York being 100, Cayman Island is 141.64. So Cayman Island is 41% higher cost of living than New York. Can you imagine that? New York has about 10 or 12 million people, while Cayman just has over 60,000 people. A 900-foot square apartment in Cayman Island rents for $4,098 per month. Coming in at #2 cost of living place is Bermuda at 138.22, Switzerland at 122.67, Norway fourth at 104.49. Now Switzerland and Norway, they got taxes through the roof, so you can expect they want to be that high. The Bahamas came in at 7th at 85.96, which means that the cost of living here is at least 14% less than it is in New York. Jamaica came in at 56.44. Trinidad came in at 54.17. Now, I suppose it takes more than the low cost of living for the prevention of mass migration. Now, as for the consumer price index for the Bahamas, in 1969, it was rated at 16.8 compared to 2018 when it was rated at 113.4. This is the indication that perhaps, it's only to me, that we may have taken the incorrect path to development, but that's for another post. Now, let's look at how we can deal with the cost of living and those that makes it so high. The #1 thing that affects our cost of living in the Bahamas is the cost of doing business. And you know the goal of every business entity is to make a profit. So to cover expenses, it's necessary to pass any extra costs on to us. So let's look at the aspects of operating a business in the Bahamas. First and foremost, all things are imported. Well, 92% of things are imported according to the data. So freight and shipping, processing fees, insurance fees to cover your shipment, duty, which is anywhere from 5 to 35%, but duty could go as high as 220% depending on the product. Stamp duty, container transfer, that's an automatic $75 just to take it from the dock to the business house. By the time the product hits the shelves, the business can leave as much as 45% of the cost of the goods with customs. Then electricity. Woo! Electricity per kilowatt around the world averages 14 cents, that's for homes, and 13 cents for businesses. Now here in the Bahamas, it's 31 cents for homes and 30 cents for businesses. Then on top of that, if or most people still have to have a backup generator, which is additional costs. Then there are salaries, which account for up to 60% of the business. You have the rent and the mortgage, the business license fees, and then the profit markup. So all of these things that go towards the cost of doing business. Now, the number two item that drives our cost of living up is the value added tax, better known as VAT. Now, VAT came into being in 2015, and it was primarily to boost government revenue. And you know how governments operate. They borrow too much, spend more than they borrow. And it doesn't matter where on the planet you go, that's just the way governments are. What I found surprising though is that our next door neighbors, you know who they are, the United States, who we love to emulate, does not have value added tax. So it's an EU, European Union practice, which has spread around the world. Just like custom duty, it's easy to collect because businesses do all the work and then turn the money in to the government. Now, VAT has eroded your income and increased your cost of living. Immediately when you collect your salary, you might as well take 12% and just throw it to the government. Because what happens is that for every $100 you earn, only $88 really is spendable. So to purchase $100 worth of goods, you have to spend $112 because of that. And so you have a situation where businesses incur more expensive because they got to employ professionals to operate the system. They need bookkeepers, computerized systems, and all of this adds to the cost, taking away from our financial existence. Now, VAT was raised to 12% to, quote unquote, replace the bad taxes in hotels. And I would say in this instance, foreigners go free while we are stuck with the bill. But on the other hand, VAT does have some positive effects for the economy and for government. So government doesn't have to borrow money to make the monthly civil servant payroll. More jobs are created because the bookkeepers, the accountants, the clerks, the computer persons, more of those were needed. It placed the country in a better financial position to make loan payments. And then it also accounts for 40% of the nation's revenue. So it's a double-edged sword because jobs were created while at the same time it drove our cost of living up. Now, the third item that really impacts our cost of living is the fear of crime. Now, prior to COVID-19, on a daily basis, you could go through any of the local papers and read about the litany of murders, armed robberies, credit card frauds, on and on. Now, as a result of this, folks tend to move about with a sense of caution. The fear of crime has a direct impact on our cost of living, and here's how. Rents and mortgages have to go up because in all the facilities you got burglar bars, alarm systems, surveillance cameras. All of this add to the cost, especially with newly built homes. Now, it impacts government budget for us in that more tax dollars have to end up being diverted to the fighting of crime instead of the education or health care. So police need more cars, drones, shot spotters, and I understand one of those are $1 million. They have camera surveillance around the city, computer systems. All of these are mega bucks. And then when you go to business houses, all of them have the roll down hurricane / burglar shutters. Then there are security guards. They have to have more surveillance systems, counterfeit detectors, armored car services, more lighting on the premises, bulletproof glass, metal detectors, and the list goes on. And all of these things are connected to our cost of living. Just as if you were to spill some oil on the road and a car comes by and have an accident, everything is connected. It's cause and effect. It's the same way for the economy. Then you have the shoplifters. Owners have to price to cover their loss that would come with the shoplifters. Then, of course, you have employee theft. Businesses must constantly replace stolen inventory. Case of banks, they must replace stolen money. These costs are passed on to us in higher prices. And the final item I look at that really goes towards our cost of living is the Immovable Properties Act. Now, for persons wishing to locate the act online, just type in immovable, IMMOVABLE, Property Act 1981, and it'll come up. You may be wondering, what in the world does this have to do with my cost of living? See, the thought behind the establishment of the Act was for the protection and preservation of Bahamian land for future generations by not allowing foreign entities to purchase land at will. Now, under this Act, land could be sold by approval, of course, for residential purposes only, and commercial entities would receive land leases as opposed to direct ownership. Of course, the Act was replaced in 1993 by the International Persons Land Holding Act, which allowed foreign entities to purchase land anywhere at will. Now, I'll make a point as to how, when foreign entities come in, how it impacts the purchasing of land. I can recall going to Jamaica on a training course, and when I showed up to rent a place, having Pan American Health Organization money paying for the course, the landlord said to me, hey, I had to turn away one of the local residents because he knew I was coming. So I subplanted a national. I can recall visiting my sister in Atlanta in the 90s, and I looked at the size of the apartments and how low the rent was. But go back today, because people are coming from all over America, they view Atlanta as the black capital of America. So you have wealthy black persons, then you have a lot of professional athletes and entertainers making their home there because of it. So, and then in our situation, having all the individuals coming in, a person coming in from Singapore, someone from New York, someone from Los Angeles, someone from London, they are coming in with massive amount of cash and they are buying up land normally that you'd say Bahamians aren't, but the impact circulates and spreads throughout the economy, putting it at out of reach for many persons. Now let's look at some property samples to give you an idea what the cost of property are like in the Bahamas now. In Nassau, Camp Road, for instance, homes in that area going for $150,000. Nassau Village, $160,000 to $195,000. Yellow Elder Gardens, $130,000 to $150,000. A vacant piece of property in Nassau Village now goes for $60,000 to $70,000. So for a $1,500 mortgage, and the average Bahamian who earning about, household Bahamians I should say, earning $30,000 per annum, you're looking at a monthly payment of $1,300, which is more than 50% of their income. Let's look at the middle and upper class homes. Stapleton Garden, Millennium, Carmichael Road area, $200,000 to $375,000. Cable Beach, Winton, Twynham, $425,000 to $700,000. So this is what many of our persons are faced in terms of the cost of it. And then on the other hand, we have persons who are opting to place their rental with Airbnb as opposed to renting to locals on a monthly basis. So either further reducing the availability, and I should say, yes, the availability of rental spaces. Now, we can also look at some of the additional things that does to the cost of living. Some of it is just having a large population, everybody competing for the smaller resources, and the other also is greed, when persons are just jacking up prices to earn that larger profit. But let me hasten to say, no matter what, do not give up on owning property, owning land, owning a home. Do not give up. You want to have something that will pass to the next generation, that will be a springboard for them. And these times, these COVID times, are going to present opportunities that we would have never seen before in terms of home ownership, land ownership. And if you know persons abroad, your son, your daughter, your auntie, your uncle, your brother, your sister, encourage them to come home, because a new frontier and a new beginning and new opportunities are making themselves available to us. Let's seize the moment. Let's build the Bahamas. And so I'm saying, until next time, may the God of heaven and the Christ bless and prosper you.